Welcome to Mr. Chalk's Revision Tips. In this video, we will look at the effect of exercise, the heart rate and the breathing. So respiration is a chemical reaction that happens inside of all living cells. Right? It's what goes and converts glucose and oxygen and gives out energy in that process. So respiration involves chemical reactions that break down nutrient molecules in cells, releasing those energy. Aerobic respiration needs oxygen, so it is the release of a relatively large amount of energy in cells by the breakdown of food substances in the presence of that oxygen. So, unlike aerobic respiration, anaerobic respiration, however, does not need oxygen. Right, it is the release of a relatively small amount of energy in the cells by the breakdown of food without oxygen present. So glucose is not completely broken down, so much less energy is released than in aerobic respiration. There is a buildup of lactic acid in muscles during vigorous exercise, and the lactic acid needs to be oxygenized to carbon dioxide and water later. So this causes an oxygen debt that needs to be repaid after the exercise stops. Right, so this is why we carry on breathing deeply after we've finished exercising. Muscles need energy in order to contract. So while it's exercising, the muscles may need additional energy. So the breathing rate, so the volume of oxygen that you can take into the body and the volume of carbon dioxide that you are exhaling will increase, and the heart rate increases to supply the muscles with more oxygen and take away carbon dioxide. So if insufficient oxygen is available to the muscles, for instance, the exercise is vigorous or prolonged, the heart rate and lungs are unable to supply sufficient oxygen, so the muscles will begin to respire anaerobically, so lactic acid will be produced from the glucose instead of carbon dioxide and water, so the muscles will continue to contract but less effectively. So during long periods of activity, like we've said, lactic acid builds up. Glycogen reserves in the muscles may become low as more of the glucose is used for respiration, so it's broken down. So in addition, glucose is transported to the muscles from the liver. When a period of exercise is over, the lactic acid must be removed. So the body's tolerance to lactic acid is limited. So lactic acid is taken to the liver by the blood and either oxidized to carbon dioxide or water, or converted back into glucose, then glycogen. So glycogen levels in the liver and muscles can then be restored. And you can see from the graph underneath that kind of summarizes what happens in terms of the amount of oxygen that is being consumed. So these processes require oxygen. So this is why when the period of activity is over, a person's breathing rate and heart rate do not return to normal straight away. So the amount of oxygen required to remove the lactic acid and replace the body's reserves of oxygen is called the oxygen debt. So if we think about naming the two substances in larger amounts in muscles during vigorous exercise, they're at resting. Glucose and oxygen would required for this greater level of respiration. So which two substances need to be removed from muscles in larger amounts during vigorous exercise? Carbon dioxide and lactic acid. The heart rate is a measure of beats per minute. So during exercise, the heart rate increases so that sufficient blood is taken to the working muscles to provide them with nutrients such as glucose and oxygen and to remove waste products. So the heart rate increases, so this increase says the rate that oxygen is being transported there and carbon dioxide is being transported back to the lungs. So as the heart rate increases, the amount or speed of glucose needed for respiration is also increased. So if we look at this table, so it shows the effect exercise has on two people's heart rates. So we look at describing two differences between the response of these two people. Key things that you need to talk about is the R heart rate for person R rose, so it increased more slowly than person S. Person's R's heart rate leveled off, whereas person S has continued to rise. Person's R heart rate rose less overall than person S. So this would suggest that person R was probably fitter or more healthy than person S. So a student made the following hypothesis about the heart rate of smokers and non-smokers during exercise. So they suggested that during exercise, the heart rate of smokers increases more than the rate of non-smokers. So if you're looking at designing an investigation that would allow you to test this, some of the key things that you would need to include is having at least 5 people in each group. So 5 smokers, 5 non-smokers. Controlling various variables. So the number of people in each group, the age, the type of exercise, the same activity, making sure that they had no other health issues and that the time of exercise was the same. You'd have to record the heart rate before and after for each person, so you could then go and increase, work out the increase in the heart rate, and then you could compare them for each group. So during exercise, there is an increase in the physical activity of the cells that are respiring, so therefore more oxygen is needed, so breathing rate will also increase. So the rate of breathing can be measured by counting the number of breaths per minute, so the depth of breathing can also be measured using a spirometer. So if we're looking at during exercise, what happens to the breathing in humans? Key thing to say is that the depth of the breathing increases and breathing rate increases. If we try looking at describing what happens to the ribs and diaphragm, so the diaphragm contracts and flattens, so the intercostal muscles move the ribs upwards and outwards.
Thanks for watching.